Today I'm going to be informing you about how to drive a standard. The reason why I chose driving stick shift was mainly because I've been driving a standard for a little over 2 years. I learned in high school, my brother taught me how in his '01 Civic. Oh my gosh, it's the worst car ever to learn how to drive a standard in. So the reason why I chose this was, one, because half of you have no idea how to drive a standard, and that's pretty cool, so I can talk about it because I know how. I also think that it's a very valuable skill to have. I mean, standard cars are a lot cheaper and there's more of them, I think, than there is like automatic. So if there's a situation where you need to drive and the only car around is a standard, like you're going to be able to do it. If you just know how to drive an automatic, then you're pretty much in trouble. Like say your friends, drink and drive and they have a standard. We can't get them home, then leave them to go home to themselves. Driving stick can be pretty intimidating at first. That's why I want to tell you guys about the basics. When it comes to learning how to drive standards, there's 3 things that you need. 1, obviously you need a manual car to drive a standard. 2, patience, and 3, more patience. I can't stress the fact about patience in driving a standard because it's the most frustrating thing when you first start to learn how to, because you just mess up all the time and you just get so frustrated. So if you don't have patience, don't even bother getting behind the wheel in a standard. Driving stick is very much like learning how to drive again. It's almost like you've never driven before in your entire life. You approach stop signs differently, stoplights differently, you park differently, you reverse, everything's just complete opposite to what you've ever learned in an automatic. But the main thing that I want to talk about today is pretty much like leaving first gear. So like if you know how to drive first gear, you pretty much know how to drive in every other gear. So once you get the first one down, obviously you're going to know how to shift to second, third, etc. So first things first, every stick shift has an H pattern. So an H pattern is right here. It's located on like the manual shift. It looks like this. My drawing's so terrible. Okay. So first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and reverse. And that's how you're going to change gears. So if you don't understand that, you really need to study that before you get into a standard. Because if you don't know which gear is which and you drop yourself right into second, like it's not going to work. So becoming familiar with the H pattern is probably the first thing you're going to want to start to do. And then secondly, you want to learn what the clutch is. Does anyone know what the clutch is? Or what it is? Sheila, yeah. Okay. So you have 3 pedals when you drive a standard. It's the gas pedal, brake, and then the clutch. Clutch is always going to be on the left side. It's never going to be on the right side, so don't press the gas thinking it's the clutch because that would be pretty dangerous. But so think of the clutch like this. It's a door, to speak, to the H pattern. So when you push the clutch down, it almost like it releases an open door so that you can take the manual like stick shift and move it anywhere freely amongst the gears. So when you push the clutch all the way to the floor in your car, and when you push it all the way to the floor, the door opens. So you have your foot pushed down on the clutch, you're going to slowly start to release it, and your car will start rolling. And when the car starts moving, it's called the engagement. It's like the clutch engagement point. That's when you know that like when the car starts rolling, you're going to obviously want to drop into gear and hit the gas. When the car starts to move, you want to let go of the clutch. So like if you're sitting, if you're driving a standard, you're holding the clutch down, you want to slowly let it out while you're hitting the gas. Like you don't want to just let go of the clutch and then not hit the gas because then your car's going to stall. I don't know if you guys know what stalling is, like you're in a car and like your whole car just shuts off, and you see people do it all the time. I mean, you're going to stall out, so don't get frustrated over it. Like I remember the first time I stalled out, it was really, really frustrating because like I stalled 4 or 5 times and it just kept going and going. But I mean, don't feel bad about it, it's going to happen. So the next step, I mean, after you shift from first is obviously you shift down to second. And it's pretty much the same thing, you repeat the same process. You push the clutch down, you drop it in second, put it in the way, like drop it down to second, let off the clutch, hit the gas. I mean, when you shift, a lot of people don't know when to shift, so I guess like in turbo cars, you know, when you hear it, it's like you hear that noise. That's like normally when people shift, like downshift and stuff. That's normally around 2,500 to 3,000 RPMs in your car. Never really go over that, because like up revving it, it's really no point. I mean, it's not making you be a better driver. So, let's see. After the steps of going first to second, you pretty much know how to drive a standard. I mean, it's the same process over and over. It's pretty simple. I mean, you can't really mess it up too much, but the only thing that I think is probably really hard, that would be hard for you guys to understand, is the stopping. When stopping in a standard opposed to an automatic, you know, you just stomp the brakes in an automatic and you just stop. When you're in a standard, a lot of people downshift to slow down or to come to a complete stop, they throw it in neutral, and then they apply the brake. If you sit and you ride the clutch, you're going to wear it out and it's just going to break over time. Like, you don't want to sit there and wear out the clutch, because then you're going to have to get a new one and that would be terrible. And if pretty much so riding the clutch is not something you want to do. And then the only other thing I really think that like you have to know about basics driving a standard is obviously like wear your seatbelt, and when you park, pull the e-brake up, because if you don't, your car is going to roll, and that's going to be terrible. And that's why I think you all need to know how to drive a standard, because it's cool and you'll never be able to have an exotic car when you're older if you don't know how to drive a standard.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.